We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We're 8 days from Christmas
Yeah.
during this recording. I have not put up my outdoor lights, and at this point, I don't know if I should.
Yeah, I feel like if you get to like December 10th, anytime
Oh,
after
that was a week
that,
ago. Okay.
I feel like that could be like the deadline. If it's past December 10th, then you know what? Just gonna wait till next year.
Yeah, I mean, I just anytime it's not good weather out, I don't want to do it because I have to
Yeah.
climb a ladder. So not into that. And it's been mostly bad weather, which is par for the course for December. Today's actually pretty good weather, but I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It also gets dark so early. So like I don't want to be out there in the dark either. So I could take a lunch break and go put up my lights. I guess it's cool I have that ability, but
Do
I think
your
they're skipped.
neighbors?
Oh yeah. They've got their lights up, so we are the losers of the street.
You know what? That's okay. That's okay. Next year Mike will have his lights up, but I understand. And honestly, that's a lot. But yeah, Christmas is around the corner. At this very moment, I know you're not buying in. I think you said you won't buy in until maybe the Broncos lose to the Chargers and the Bengals win against the Browns, or did the Bengals need to beat the Broncos too?
I'll be excited if that scenario happens and the
Okay.
Bengals beat the Browns, which we'll get to it. And the Broncos lose tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's gonna be should be a good game. I know a lot of Bengals fans will be tuning in to Thursday Night Football, Broncos and Chargers, because as of now they're not technically out. But look, yes, it is still a very long shot for the Cincinnati Bengals. We will preview that more later this week and give a prediction for the game against the Cleveland Browns. I do know that they named their starting quarterback, and it will not be Jameis Winston. But again, preview prediction coming up soon later this week. Mike had a chance to go back and watch the tape. Feel like a few of your photos went a little viral from the breakdown of the tape over there on social media because that game was a little bit of a circus. But you know what? I feel like we talk about them a lot, and I'm not even giving the defense their flowers because of how this season is going, and they still let the Titans score 27 points. But they got turnovers, got a few takeaways. Let's flip to the defensive side because I feel like a lot of talk after that game was Myles Murphy. There were people high on Myles Murphy, there were people low on Myles Murphy, and I think a lot of people are like, "How should I feel, Mike? You went back and you watched the tape. How should people feel about Myles Murphy right now?"
I don't think that this game changed my opinion that much either way. I think it was a good game. Like I think people are right to point it that way. I don't think that he showed something that like I wasn't expecting. Like he showed a lot of power. He was able to. There's a play where he knocks down. He puts Skoronski on his butt. He also beat Latham inside by prying open his shoulder with some power. He had some clean wins that way. I saw the stats about how he had the second highest pass rush win rate. And to me, when I watch it, I just kind of went like, yeah, this is what I've been watching. Like I don't know, like maybe his pass rush win rate, the charting for whatever that is, didn't have it that way, but maybe it was a little bit better just being able to land some of those moves. But he wasn't like hitting new moves out there. He wasn't doing something that like made me think, oh, the light bulb went on, the gears shifted. He now is going to be one of the best pass rushers in the league. Like I didn't think that, but I've never been on the other side of like, oh, he's just a complete bust. They should, have him benched, because I've been thinking this entire time, like, well, he probably gives you probably as much, if not more value than Sam Hubbard. And he's more valuable to this team in the future than Joseph Osai, unless you want to pay Joseph Osai. So like he should be playing. I think it was a good game for him. I think weirdly, he looks at his best when rushing from Trey Hendrickson's spot against the
Hmm.
left tackle. And that showed up last year too. I thought his best rushes came from that side. So maybe there's a little bit of rawness. And that's where he played like all of college as well, rushing over the left tackle. So maybe there's a little bit, not only was he raw coming out, but when you put him over the right tackle, because you have to, because
Mhm.
that's the spot that they need somebody, I think some of that may not have been able to translate right away. I think he had to kind of learn the steps, learn when to do the moves. Firing off your other foot is different. I think it's easier than switching sides for offensive linemen because going forward is just more intuitive than going backward. But I do think that could contribute a little bit into why it was such a slow start for him. Whether it seems like if you're on the side that is upset about him, you go, well, he has no sacks and no forced fumbles, or you just point to those production metrics. And you're on the side that is like going over the top with it. You go like, oh, look at this pass rush win rate and where else. I look at that and I just go, okay, like what I'm seeing is still one of the best get offs in the entire NFL. He's right up there with Trey Hendrickson in that ability. And then from there, he's a work in progress. And I think that's fine because to me, when you have a get off like that, your ceiling is the sky. I don't think his ceiling is a 6-sack role player. I think his ceiling is to be a 12-sack guy, 13-sack guy, like could push for Pro Bowls. But he has to be able to reach that with some coaching and some help and some game reps. So I came away from this like happy, but I've always been a little bit higher on Myles Murphy than I think like the general person just because of the get off, the size. But I also wouldn't take it the step further and go like, man, he would, if he was out there full time, he'd have 8 sacks. And I just don't think he's finishing right now. And that's okay. But the reason he's not finishing is because he's not a refined product. I thought he could have had some sacks in this game. Mason Rudolph got the ball out quick a couple of times, and he kind of missed him the one time. So he has to finish those better. But I also think it's just a product of like what happens on a given pass play leads to a sack. Was the coverage so good that the quarterback double clutched it? Or was the coverage so loose that the quarterback was just able to feel any sort of pressure, just check it down? One play that debatable whether it was a pressure or if Rudolph just stinks is the one interception Josh Newton had was Murphy was right there. He beat Latham inside about to hit Mason Rudolph, and then he threw the ball, sailed it right to Josh Newton. I think a debate could be had whether or not Murphy had a pressure or that Rudolph felt that. But I would say that if Rudolph didn't throw that ball in that second, tried to move to number 2 in that progression, he was going to take a sack. So I think the charting's weird. This is my main takeaway. It went like, man, he went from like I get told 0% win rate to now it's like, oh, he had a 50% win rate. It's like, well, it wasn't like a 50% like better game. It was a good game. It was better, probably. It was one of his best games in terms of rushing the passer. But I don't think it was like a stark difference. Like we've never seen Myles Murphy do this. Whereas like, yeah, you kind of have.
I think there's a couple things with Myles Murphy and a lot of people have to remember going into, and it's crazy because it's going to be going into year 3. He's 22 years old right now, still really young. And obviously I wish Sam Hubbard the absolute best. Sounds like he'll be out for the rest of the season, even though Zach Taylor said he's not technically going to be out for the rest of the season, but I'm going to pretty much bank on him not being there. So Myles Murphy will be out there getting the reps. And I think that's the most important thing. Yes, there's like a 5% chance this team could make the postseason, but there are bigger fish to fry on the defensive side. And these young guys continuing to get reps is what really matters in these next 3 games, just because it's such an outside chance for them to get in. And I think a big thing for this team, and I said it to you a couple weeks ago, I don't want this team winning down the stretch to change the front office's mind when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. They need to hire defensive coaches in there. I'm not saying like fire everyone, but I think the development of Myles Murphy and some of the younger guys in the secondary too is extremely important when it comes to coaches. So I think those hires are going to be extremely important for Myles Murphy. Who knows if it is a coaching issue or anything like that, because I want him to be even better every year. You want the player to be even better. And like you said, pretty much it can only go up from here. And it's not like he's a terrible product out there. So on a scale of 1 to 10, year 2, I know he's dealt with an injury. Where would you put Myles right now?
To me, it's like a 5. I just kind of whatever year, like tiny bit of development maybe, but not enough that I feel confident in the staff to develop him to his potential. to me, he's playing around his floor. Like, this is what I thought, like, the low end outcome for Murphy would be to be a guy that could rotate in there, maybe get a pressure or two and play okay run defense. Like, I feel like you should be seeing more, but I also think that I've said this the entire time, 3-year product with him. If by the end of year 3 it's still this, you move on for sure.
Oh.
And I also think for the people that, or not, maybe not move on, but you just kind of go like, okay, that's what he is, move on. I also think for the people that are also just going, well, what, you're not going to look at edges at all? Like, yeah, I will. I would 100% look if there's a edge rusher in round 1, Abdul Carter, for example. I haven't watched him, but like I think that's what most people have as number 1. If he's sitting there for you, yeah, you take him because it's a position you can't have too many of. You can run a rotation, and the thing is, the best outcome is that Myles Murphy develops, becomes the 12 sack guy that maybe he could, and then the guy you took in the draft is as good as possible, and then you're not decimated by Trey Hendrickson aging the same way they were with some of these other guys that aged out and left. So Trey Hendrickson, there's an expiration date. Sadly, I mean, is he 30? Going to be 30, somewhere around there. So like, you could see the end of the road. Like, maybe he can Julius Peppers his way to like 38 and just keep playing. But Julius Peppers, people kept giving up on him too. So like, let's not forget this. They go, 34-year-old Peppers, I think we'll let him go. And then he went and proved him wrong or whatever. Yeah. Or, older players like Reggie White and whatnot. Jason Taylor played a long time. James Harrison was still productive for the Patriots like 18 years into his career. So yeah, you might be proven wrong. You might be like, look dumb by the end of it. But I do think this team especially doesn't love giving contracts to guys over the age of 30. So to me, the cliff for the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, hope he has as much production as possible everywhere he goes, because he's been awesome. He's been great for Cincinnati. I think that cliff is fast approaching. So you need to be able to soften the blow when your best defensive players leave. They didn't do that with Reeder. They didn't do that with Bates. They tried with Bates at least. They did draft Dax Hill and have some type of plan. Didn't work. And then they tried to bargain Ben Hunt to find the other safety and got Nick Scott. So I think the best outcome would be you take a guy early, Myles Murphy develops, and then you just have 3 guys that are awesome. Maybe that guy that you take hits the ground running because he's Abdul Carter or James Pierce or whoever. I think the guys they're interested in are the ones that Bengals fans are terrified of, like whatever. We got a long time talking about the
athletes,
draft.
okay? Just give me
about the draft. The thing is, Myles Murphy, Joseph Osai were great athletes. They were above a 9 RAS. Like these were high-end athletes. That is the one part I think people are getting wrong. It's like, well, they say like, the defense is slow. It's like, yeah, they're slow at the linebacker position, which those guys were athletes at some point. I don't know what's happened to Pratt.
Well, it's time to gut that room.
At all, like, it doesn't look at all like an athlete anymore. The safeties are not athletes. They haven't been athletes. Geno Stone runs like a 4.6, and I think Battle's in the 4.5s. I mean, Bates was never that high of an athlete. He was just so smart that he was able to get there, before the quarterback knew what he was like a step ahead of the guy at all times. So that's where I have the issue is like, they have athletes. They have defensive line athletes. It's just they don't have athletes where like it matters more, or in the spine of the defense, like linebacker and safety. And those linebackers used to be good athletes. Now it seems like they run through the mud a little bit. So this is the one part I'm at. I don't know if the athlete thing just means a good transfer, because Murphy, you could think of size, athleticism, check. Production in college, didn't have it. And if you want a guy to produce right away, they're probably going to be guys that produce in college. So when you take Murphy, I would hope that everybody's in lockstep of going, okay, this guy wasn't like a high-end pass rusher in college, but he's got all the tools to become one of the best in the NFL if we can train him up. So you have to have a little bit of grace. I don't think fans always have that, which is fine because, fans are fans. But I would hope that the staff has that. I just think like the other end is like, you're not going to not go after a guy in free agency or the draft, especially Osai leaves. Your third best edge player is Cam Sample off of a major injury. I think you'd rather have something than that. Now, if they go sign Chase Young and draft a guy round 1, you start getting into the logjam again of like, So where do these guys get snaps? Is like if Murphy develops, does the round 1 pick become the new Murphy of sitting on the bench, or does Murphy never get the snaps? You just throw that pick away and say goodbye. So that'd be the part where you get 2 guys. Then I'm a little bit questionable because the defensive tackles are the real issue when it comes to this pass rush to me.
Yeah.
They don't get
I feel like
anything.
we've always felt that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the big conversation is. And look, if you're sitting there, I still feel like the Bengals are probably going to be picking in like the top 15, maybe 13 or 12. Who knows what that, what that looks like. Again, if you're listening to this and you're a Bengals fan and you think that they're going to make the playoffs, hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm just going to say like this is kind of the realistic outcome of where they're at right now. You got to take the best, for me personally, the best defensive player. Because that player can fit anywhere on your defense right now. You could look at the safety room, you could look at the cornerback room, you could look at a defensive tackle, you could look at the edge. They need help. Safety, 100% safety's on the table going in. It has to be on the table going into the offseason. And Jesse Bates made the interception last night in the end zone to end the game. It was a Hail
Mary. It was a Hail Mary. That was finally a game that I did not go like, man, Jesse Bates.
I know, but you see him come up with it. You see him come up with it, and you're like, oh, there he is. No, honestly, Atlanta has other problems, and that's on the offensive side of the ball. But just overall, on the defense side of the ball, I feel like, and again, not to get too much into this conversation because I felt like we've talked about it a lot when it comes to the extensions of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But if those are the extensions that you're focusing on going into the offseason, which one will get done, you have to hit on your draft picks, and you do need to go defensive heavy. Trenches, all of that stuff is extremely important. You look at some of these playoff teams and trenches matter. They always matter. And I really hope, that's kind of the focus in the first round. We'll see what it looks like for them. But again, plenty of time to talk about that. I want to stay on the defensive side for maybe one more position. Then we'll flip to the offense from this game. Geno Stone, speaking of safeties, look, I'm not buying in or anything like that. He's had a couple good games, but I'm looking at the competition that they are currently facing. Do you think, and it's kind of my worst nightmare, if he finishes out the season strong, they end up saying, you know what, we'll keep you one more year. It's a 2-year contract. And then they still look at the safety room because I don't believe that the second safety is still on the roster. Would love for Jordan Battle to be the answer. I don't know if the youth on the roster is the answer for them long-term as a starter in the safety room. What do you think the Cincinnati Bengals do? Do you see them keeping Geno, and have you been surprised with his play just over the last few games?
I mean, he's played a little bit better, but I still think he misses tackles. I still think he's not athletic. So, like, those are issues that, to me, you're going to look at that and go like, well, they're not getting better. Like, that's not going to get better for him. So do you think he can overcome that? I would say I would move on. Now, is it within the realm of possibility that you move on and he's good somewhere else? Yeah. I think those are decisions you have to live with. I think the Bengals could keep him, but I don't think I'd bet on it because I think the path to them keeping him would be that Anarumo stays because I think Anarumo likes him. Because the coaches have a lot of say in the free agents and the draft picks that come in here, and it feels like that was a guy Anarumo wanted to me. I don't have like some type of insider info on that, but I think he saw some Jesse Bates in him just in terms of being able to make plays on the ball, smart, even though he's not that athletic. It just seemed like a guy that maybe he'd be able to put into his safety room, be able to lift up the communication like Bates was able to, etc. I don't know if you've gotten that, but I think that Amro does like him. If he stays, I think the chance that Geno stays goes up. If he's gone, like we've kind of predicted, then I don't think that a new staff is going to possibly, but I would say a new staff would come in and go, yeah, let's cut bait. And so I have some more money to play with to go find a safety. I understand he's graded well for PFF. I think he's played better. I think that when I saw something that said like he was the second best safety, I was like, okay, I don't think he's playing that well. We'll see. I like this game is another one because Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to start. I just kind of throw it away. Like, is that guy really going to test your safeties? Is he going to be able to look off the
Mhm.
safety one way and throw it behind his head the other, or take the chance on quarters coverage to throw it where Geno should be backing up? He didn't back up enough, like Jaden Daniels was able to do to him. I think good quarterbacks challenged him, and he didn't pass that test. I think also watching this Titans game, I came away watching the film going, open receivers. I think there's open receivers. I think Rudolph is quick to check it down. And I thought that Levis is kind of, he's got a bozo gene that he just throws the ball to the defense. I don't understand what he's seeing on the field. So look at that. You kind of go, I
Mhm.
don't know. Like, I'm with you where I think the worst scenario would be the defense plays well against all these bad teams to prop up some of their stats and whatever else. And, then you keep them around. I wouldn't. I think you look, if you are going to be a contender, you have to be able to play well against good offenses too. So what's the next good offense they play?
I would
Is
say Bo Nix, and they have a good. They have a,
that's gonna be the best one you'll play.
yeah.
I think is Bo Nix to you, is this rookie Bo Nix Denver Sean Payton offense, would this be one that you would go in the playoffs? This is what you'll see.
No, I think that, and I don't want to take anything away from Bo Nix because he's having a
I
great
think he's
rookie year.
played good. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
played good. I guess I have high expectations for the team,
yeah,
and
you should.
that is like not surviving by the seat of their pants against
Yeah,
Bo Nix. Like that would be, they played well against Mahomes, but like the Chiefs' offense has been so bad since then that who cares? Yeah,
so
that
bad.
it's very much a who cares. That is not like if you play off Mahomes, I would have some more faith.
I know.
But yeah, this defense didn't do well against Washington, didn't do well against Philly, they didn't do well
Um,
against Pittsburgh. We'll see, because I didn't think Geno played particularly well against Pittsburgh, and that was off of a bye. So we'll see. I don't know. That's where I am. Is just a we'll see mode.
yeah.
I think it's great that he's been playing better. I think that good offenses are going to challenge this defense and prove them wrong. Until I'm proven wrong, the defense is going to get exposed by good offenses. Like I have made the joke multiple times. The Bengals are the water test to whether a quarterback is an NFL starter. Will Levis benched,
Benched.
because like if you're doing this against the Bengals defense, you are not a starting quarterback.
You know
Mason
it's
Rudolph went out there, just threw checkdowns, and he was fine. Like that, if Will Levis just threw a check down every play, he would be fine. But instead, he's got the bozo gene.
You know what's crazy is, and again, they need a lot of help, and I keep saying this, they do need a lot of help, but so the bench could end up helping them just a little bit because they play the Colts, the Titans play the Colts, and Mason Rudolph is a little bit better than Will Levis, so we'll see what
Yeah,
that looks like when it comes to that matchup. But it's kind of crazy how that worked when that was going to be their next opponent. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Look, good for Geno to have a few good games, but I still think about this defense as a whole, as a product, and it has been disappointing and embarrassing. And I'm not giving them
yeah,
their flowers when they still let the Titans score 27 points. Like, sorry, that's
yeah.
you're not good
Right,
still.
right there with you on the 27 points. And I know that one of the came at the end. It also looked like they gave up at the end. It's just kind
Yeah,
of
the whole
sad
that
to see.
touchdown right down the field. Like, what are you? I'm
I think if
just
Tajay Spears stayed in bounds, he scored. Like he ran out of bounds because he's getting chased. I was like, yeah, if you stayed in, I wonder. I just quickly wanted to look at the safeties that are going to be available. I mean, you got like Javon Holland, which would be awesome. I don't think they're going to pay that much money.
mhm.
Buda Baker, maybe if you want to pay like a tiny bit less than
I don't.
Holland, but
They
probably not
won't.
paying that money either. Justin Reed, I wonder if they still have beef with him, but that's an interesting one because he's good, certifiably good,
Could
not
you
elite.
imagine
Yeah, yeah. Hurst isn't here anymore, so you
Justin
just have to.
Reed in this locker room with Jamar Chase? I need it. I need
It'd
it.
be fun. It'd be fun to me. You look at some other guys like Trevon Moehrig. If they liked him in the draft, I could see that. I think he's a quality safety. Like I think you'd probably get better play out of him than you have Geno
Mhm.
this season. Um, like there's safeties out there, and the thing about safety to me is also it's been pretty cheap. Ooh, Hafunga, another guy, and he's not a deep safety most
Mhm.
likely. Nick Scott, could the reunion?
No. No, 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 I'd rather just not go with a safety on the team, honestly. Um,
Yeah, but they're like there's some guys out there that I think you'd look at and you'd go, would this guy
mhm,
be even just comparable to what Geno Stone provided for the team? Because next year, as I'm trying to pull it up, Geno Stone is going to cost $8 million against the cap. So could you find a guy that's $8 million or cheaper that gives you the same level of production? I would say, yeah. Like, I think you could. I think you
Mhm.
could save some money. Now, you have to consider, I guess, the $1.5 million of dead cap, but I don't really.
Well, that's
Six,
nothing to me. That's
yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
If it
So you
helps you win
save
a game,
6.5. You save 6.5 million. Could you find a safety for that much money on year one of a contract? Probably.
yeah. And I wanna say this, I had mentioned Jordan Battle. I don't mean that as a diss or anything like that because, look, maybe he'll get more reps and we'll see more out of him down the stretch, which is very ideal. I wanna see him on the field. You wanna see what you drafted. And I don't hold anything against him from switching his hands to the I mean, that
I
was just
hold one thing against him, and
you do?
that's that he was 100% lying in the interview after.
Oh, you think
I
he
was
was?
switching it. I was switching it to my outside hand because that's what they tell you. No, no, you were right near the end zone when you switched it. You were running along the sidelines with it in the inside hand. You didn't care. It looked like he went to put it into his left hand to like hold out to
Okay,
me.
alright,
To
alright.
me, I
I
think
he
this was a
he fooled
celebration thing.
me. He fooled me because I believed him, but I thought Jamar Chase
If you watch the play again, you'll see he's running with it in the right hand the whole way down that left sideline. I'm not buying that right before the goal line he made the switch because
yeah,
he's in traffic. He's in traffic near the end over there. If you were really worried and you're right at the goal line, you just
yep,
put the second hand on it.
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
have to switch it over. Plus,
okay.
he's cutting inside. He's cutting inside. He's not worried about the ball going out of bounds.
All right. Well, I'll take your word for it. Maybe I believe everyone when they do their interviews, and I tried to believe them. But at the end of the day, I think there was a lot of people that like, oh, they're putting it back out there. I'm like, heck yeah, they're putting it back out there. Have you seen
Yeah,
the alternative? Have you seen the alternatives? Like,
the
of course.
alternative got in for one play and got
And
mossed.
there's
I felt a
yes,
little
and there's a
bad.
touch like it's yes, you're putting him back out there, and he's gonna play again next. I mean, it's I'm fine with it. So hopefully the best for Jordan, and honestly, he's on a rookie deal. I hope he works out for them. But we'll see what they do. But I'm okay with moving on from Geno Stone. Let's flip over to the offensive side. Normally we start the podcast with that, but I feel like we've talked plenty about Joe Burrow. To be honest with you, is there anything you would like to say about him? Nothing against. He's having a great year, but
About Joe Burrow.
yeah, from that game, I mean, I feel like we've talked
He
plenty.
was he was pretty good. Had some turnovers. I wonder, do you hold the fumble against him because it really did seem like the elbow was probably down, but then they didn't rule it that way, so you did lose the ball and 30 yards on a glorious return from Devondre Sweat. But I I mean I felt like he played pretty good. I thought he took some hits. I thought he was able to extend some plays, make some magic happen.
Mhm.
Pretty standard Burrow game, maybe a little bit below the season average of a Burrow game, just because he didn't protect the ball well enough. The John Boy lip reading, thought that was
Mhm.
interesting.
Good storyteller.
But I also think like that it made sense. Like he was going through to find like why was this embarrassing? I think Burrow is just like that psycho competitor that he thinks they're so much better than the Titans. He's just embarrassed, and not only by that drive where they had the multiple false starts and delay of game or whatever,
Mhm.
but also just the entire game. Like if you were somebody who thought you're the best in the world, you would be embarrassed with multiple interceptions, so many penalties. It's just like
Yeah.
sloppy football up and down the field, missed opportunities, a guy fumbling the ball through the back of the end zone. So, like, yeah, it was kind of an embarrassing game for if you were treating this seriously. Because to me, like, I'm still obviously, we talked about that. Yeah, I'm not really fully bought in. So I just had fun. But if you were like, this is my livelihood and my season on the line, and this is how we played, I'm embarrassed. I think you would just look at this game and go like, yeah, like they weren't sharp. It's not like they went out there and they
No.
were sharp.
No, they
And
looked
the,
bad, and he threw a bad interception. I mean, and some of it I could blame the offensive line on when it comes to, but one of them it was a really bad one. It was a bad throw. I'm sure we'd want back. That's what Joe is so good that he throws bad interceptions. He's so good that he's like the only quarterback out there who can make the interception look absolutely terrible. Because some of them you're like,
I don't know. Will Levis looked pretty bad. Like, what do you
actually,
mean?
never mind, never mind. Will Levis topped him. But no, for Joe and getting angry on the sideline, I have zero issue with that. I would be more concerned if my quarterback was just like, "Oh, everything's good. I'm so happy on the sideline. We're up by a couple scores. Game's over." Joe's frustrated. Joe's mad about how the season's going. Joe's again, putting words in his mouth, so I apologize, guys. I'm just guessing how he's feeling. But Joe's probably mad that he has to play near perfect Superman every game because his defense can't do anything. And yes, they did things in the Titans game, but the team overall looked bad. They looked sloppy. They still won by 2 scores, but yes, you want perfection. You want to look good. It is embarrassing being 6-8. If you look at the NFL as a product right now, Mike, it's so annoying that they don't have an average defense. If you look at the whole entire product, you look at the AFC playoff picture, and look, I know the Bills are they're crazy good on offense. They are outstanding. Josh Allen's probably going to win the MVP, but their defense isn't perfect. And I just think you look at some of these teams and you're like, man, if only the Bengals had that average defense, what the season would have looked like. Yes, if a couple kicks would have went in and how different we are talking about December football right now. Now they need a 5 billion things to happen for them to get in. And it just sucks. So I don't blame Joe Burrow. And I think he was just venting. I don't think he's mad at Zach Taylor or anything like that. I think he's venting to his coach, like somebody would vent to their coworker when they're having a bad day. So I don't know. You yeah. For Joe and the turnovers, I know that's a thing too. Like blame Burrow, don't blame Burrow. What do you do? Yeah, he had some balls I'm sure he would like back. And yeah, the fumble stuff it's a little bit different this year. Part of me thinks, coming off the wrist injury, who knows how he's feeling about when it comes to protecting the ball and what that looks like for him. And maybe that's something that he's still working on. I'm not giving him an excuse for that, but he's played really well all season long. So it's really hard for me to kind of criticize his play. But felt like he did. Felt like he did it for everyone else. He criticized how it went. So I don't know. Joe Burrow still Superman on this team. But we'll go to the other offensive players real quick. Just a few of them I want to point out. Offensive line. Tell me when you went back and you watched the tape right now. And I know Alex Kappa is currently in concussion protocol. They do practice later today. So we'll hear from that on Wednesday if Alex Kappa is still in concussion protocol, what that looks like when it comes to the interior position. But Devin Cochran was out there, and just the overall from tackle to interior. Quick summary.
I thought Mims was great. I thought he had one of his best days. I mean, shut down Harold Landry. Was Harold Landry. Went back, checked the number and everything. Have heard he hasn't been as good this season, so whatever. But I thought he's really good when he got any opportunity to pass protect. Thought Kappa, it's been Kappa this year. Karras, all right. I think he's been solid. Volson is surprising to me in terms of, I saw the PFF grade was pretty high because he's he might be their best run blocker, but he is a liability in pass protection to me. Like, I don't see a discernible difference between him and Kappa in pass protection. To me, when I watch, they both make big mistakes, get Burrow killed on guys that they should be able to handle and guys that they shouldn't be able to handle. So I think they both look overwhelmed in pass protection. Cochran, it was a roller coaster. I think like some of it was good. And then I think even in the second half, there were plays that you went, ooh, like Burrow made the guy miss, and then you don't think about it. It's kind of that happens for offensive linemen. I think that if Burrow gets sacked or even just takes the hit after he throws, people will remember that more than if that guy's like a free runner, Burrow makes him miss and then goes and makes a play. People don't really think about that as like a negative. It almost feels like when in basketball somebody takes a bad shot, but then you get the offensive rebound. Like, just because it doesn't sting as much, you held onto the ball. So it's the same idea. It's like, well, the play went on, so was it that bad? It's like, well, yeah, because it's just like, well, if you didn't see him or whatever, that guy's just a better athlete and he's able to stay on his feet and make the sack, you would care. So when it comes to what Cochran controlled on those plays, like there was an issue. I also think when I went back and watched, I kind of went, yeah. I think they are currently dealing with 3 low-end starters, no matter how they shake it out, an average center and a promising, but altogether probably at this point in his career, around average right tackle when you consider the run blocking and the pass blocking. So it's not great. He's taken I saw Burrow has more pressures this season than any other season, which is sad, considering the hope going into the year. And other than Orlando Brown, that most of these guys have been okay, like health-wise. I guess you had, I don't know, maybe you consider Kappa's health to be just a decline from where it was in 2022. So yeah, I'm not stoked about the offensive line performance. Thought Cochran was all right. He's a high end athlete. I think he is out of control a bit with his technique, and it shows up. Would you want Orlando Brown can't go? Myles Garrett mostly rushes over the left tackle. I don't know what your best option is. Like it might be Cody Ford,
It probably
but
is.
but whew,
Can I get some help? Can I get some help?
yeah, I would hope you're giving a lot of help to that direction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Myles should sit out. I know he got poked in the eye. I think Myles should just sit out for this game. They're going to be without Newsome, a couple of their secondary pieces. Let Myles just relax, coast through. He's done enough for Cleveland.
got hit with the Captain Insano, huh?
He just needs a break. You need a break, Myles. This week,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So it's not like I watched Cochran and went like, yeah, that's the guy I want against Myles Garrett. But then I also went like, well, assuming Orlando Brown can't move because that's what he looked like against Pittsburgh, do I want Cody Ford out there against Myles Garrett? Not particularly. I think Ford looked better at guard than he did tackle. We'll see. I think the one interesting thing is, do they try to play more musical chairs with the offensive line? Because they
Maybe.
did that where they, against the Steelers, Volson went to the bench and Ford came in and played left guard while Orlando Brown played left tackle. Do they try something like that? Because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they go Cochran left tackle, Ford one of the guard spots. I do think it's out of my personal belief that they will go Matt Lee center, Ted Karras guard spot. Even if people have been claiming that is the best five since
No.
the beginning of training camp, I don't see them doing it. I don't see them trying that. I think part of it is Ted probably doesn't want to play guard. He's a better center than he is a guard to me, and probably him. And I also think on the other end that the Bengals like him at center.
They
So it would be tough to sell them on the idea that like I move him over and put a rookie at center. I think they're going to keep it that way. So it'll be interesting to see if they do any musical chairs. It'll be interesting to see who the sixth offensive lineman is, if they do anything, because in that one Steelers game that Volson didn't start, it was still Matt Lee as the sixth offensive lineman. Do they like Devin Cochran's athleticism so much that if he's not starting, it's Ford at left tackle? Does he become the sixth offensive lineman? I have no idea. So I think that's interesting. It's
Yeah.
just a wait and see approach for me, though. Yeah, so that's how I thought the offensive line played.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a quick breakdown. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up? And then we'll be back later this week to talk Cleveland, Cincinnati Bengals.
Chase Brown's great. Cool they
Superstar.
found him. Yeah, we talked a lot about that, but he's great. I think he can handle the workload. I would kind of want them to soften up that workload a little bit just so
Mhm.
he can make it further into his career and not see a decline. But at the current moment, like, man, great player. Great pass catcher too. And getting better as a pass blocker, although he did have a one play where he had a pretty big issue. Other than that, nothing really in the offense. I mean, the wide receivers are the wide receivers. Burton got in there for 3 plays and they didn't like it. Uh, where do
You
you
go
have?
from there?
Yeah, do you think Burton factors at all into decision making for next season?
Not if they bring T. Higgins and Mike Gesicki back. No.
Okay, well, let's say they don't. Does he factor in? Do you think that they
No, I
look at
think they
him?
still draft the wide receiver. I'll
Yeah,
be honest
that's
with
what
you.
that's where I am. Like
He might
if
be
they
their first
factored
miss.
no, John Ross.
Oh
What
no!
do you
Oh,
mean first
sorry,
miss?
sorry. That one just shoo right over my head in the first round, ninth pick. Yeah, sorry about that. But yes, how could I miss that one? Sorry, every Bengals fan listening. But you know what? I want to take that back. I don't. I hope Jermaine figures it out. I
Me
do.
too, but like I'm more like on the point of like he could be wide receiver 6 next season in terms of if they still have Yoshi above him and
Oh
then
yeah,
they keep
Yoshi.
T. Yeah, you keep T, you have Yoshi above him, you have Chase above him. So 1, 2, 3, and then you draft a guy in at like 120 or something, or maybe
Yeah,
late third, because I don't think you should be sold that Yoshi should be your wide receiver 3 either. And then you have Mike Gesicki, who's essentially a wide receiver. then it becomes like he's like, whew,
Mike,
not going to see the field too much, but unless he drastically shows something different in preseason and camp.
we'll wrap it up right after this thought. But Mike Gesicki, you're having a really great season. Please don't make us pay you like you're a wide receiver, even though we treat you like a wide receiver.
I
We are
don't
going to
think
pay you like a tight end.
I don't think his market will be big enough. It's just, I mean, we'll see. But coming out of Miami, he didn't have much of a market. Coming out of New England, he didn't have much of a market. Now that came with depressed stats because of New England. Maybe because his stats are around where they were at the start of Miami, he has some market, but I would think it wouldn't be too hard to keep him. Like, I would predict the Bengals keep him because he's very useful in Cincinnati. And I think for his career, he wants to stay in Cincinnati, not just because you get to play with Burrow, which is awesome to play with a quarterback like that, but because there's such a spread team, he fits in really well. He's not going to fit into every offense because a lot of offense wants your tight end to be able to at least line up in line and survive. And I don't think he wants to do that. I don't think he's particularly good at it. What he is good at is being a wide receiver. So go continue being a wide receiver.
Continue to do that. Can't wait to talk about it. We'll talk all extensions and all that fun stuff in a few months. Cincinnati Bengals have a huge matchup when they take on the Cleveland Browns, but all eyes are on Thursday Night Football for Chargers and Broncos and who takes that game. Make sure you check out Mike's work, Bengals_Sands, all of his content on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. You can follow me at LNDS Patterson. Thank you for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.